debate over school vouchers is heating up again, with President Donald Trump proposing to pour some $1.4 billion into expanding school voucher programs nationwide. The proposal has prompted some in the education community to push back. Opponents say the president's plan will not help the majority of American school children and will be a terrible blow to the nation's public schools. Of course, vouchers have been gaining steam since the 1990s. 13 states and the District of Columbia currently have school voucher programs. Joining us right now, talk about this issue from Hartford, Connecticut, Dr. Steve Perry, founder and the head of Capital Preparatory Schools. Steve, you there?
I am, sir.
All right. Also in studio with me, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers. Randi, I want to start with you. Okay. You recently did an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times talking about this.
Congratulations to your parents.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Opposing this particular program. Why?
Number one, the new studies about vouchers say that they don't work for children. Number two, and I think frankly this is as important, is what was being cut. If you look at what happened in Michigan with all the cuts to schools, reading scores in Michigan, where Betsy DeVos was very instrumental in those cuts, Michigan went from basically 28 in reading in 2003 to 42, or actually 28 to 41st in reading in 2015. There's $11 billion of cuts. So the things that actually support kids in public schools are being cut at the same time as there's a promotion of a strategy that the recent studies are showing don't work. Now, as Steve knows, you know, and some of my members are really upset with me for this, I believe in school, in every public school being a place where parents want to send their children, where educators want to teach. I believe that there is a role for charters, but we have to ensure that the neighborhood public school is viable and that money doesn't get stripped for after-school programs, for mental health programs, for reading programs, and for all of that. That is the real problem with her budget.
Steve.
Randi has supported educational apartheid for much of her career. She's focused on making sure that African American children stay in some of the lowest performing school systems because, in fact, she, through her organization, which acts in many ways like a cartel, has access to these teachers' salaries through union dues.
Could you actually make an argument that doesn't insult me?
That isn't one of the important things to keep in mind is that the black community has for a long time been fighting against these systems that have created this system, like housing covenants and redlining and other things that have made black children go to some of the poorest performing schools in America. So finally, African Americans are getting the way out. We've fought our way out. Many mothers and grandmothers and aunts right now are waking their children up and putting them on buses and trains to get them to community schools and other communities because in their communities they don't have an honest choice. So what we've seen is there have been over 19 studies, in fact, that have shown that vouchers that have studied vouchers, and of the 19, 14 have found that they in fact work. We think of vouchers in our community differently. We think of them as like a scholarship that you might get to St. Mary's or Notre Dame because the school that's in your neighborhood, in fact, isn't working. So African Americans overwhelmingly support school choice, support vouchers. Latinos, the only folks who don't, quite frankly, are wealthy and white people.
Now, Randi, I want to go back to you on this. And so here's what's interesting. We did a study last year. Cornell Belcher's firm, Brilliant Corners, commissioned them. More than 70% of African-American parents with kids in school supported charter schools.
Right.
More than 70% of those same black parents supported school vouchers. And so to Steve's point, that is sort of how African-Americans look at it, because what I hear from black parents is like, look, I don't care. They're saying, I'm just tired of my kid not getting a good education. If there is another way, fine, I'll take it.
So what in that study, and you and I have talked about that study, when things get pit about, do you want to take money from the neighborhood public school for the voucher school, people say no. And frankly, what many people have seen, Steve is absolutely wrong about all the new studies. When you see in Indiana and Louisiana and the study that just happened in DC, parents want a safe school for their kids and they want joy for their kids, and we have to do that. But you ask parents head to head, do you want a neighborhood public school that's going to help your kids? and you want to make sure that that's a good school, overwhelmingly, black, white, Latino will say yes. And what has happened with the recent voucher schools is it's increased segregation, it's increased discrimination, and so the goal here is we have to actually help parents have what they need for their kids. And the other goal is, and just as a point of personal privilege, you know, I taught school in Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York. I only taught black and brown kids. My kids made it to national competitions. I'm tired of somebody making a claim against teachers, many of whom are black and brown, who want to actually help kids. Don't call, you know, teacher unions that.
Steve.
Well, the facts are the facts. The facts are that African Americans are attending some of the lowest performing schools in America that are traditional schools. Finally, African Americans are making their way out to successful charter schools, which Randi has fought hard against and lobbied against when those schools do not pay into the cartel of the teachers union. So this is the fact. This is the fact also is that we as African Americans, and I find it disingenuous for anyone to get on black media and trying to convince black people, most of whom, even the people who work at TV1, are exercising school choice. So I find it disingenuous for Randi Weingarten, attorney Randi Weingarten, to consistently try to present herself as someone who has our interests at heart. We've seen this story before, and it's time to move on.
All right, folks, I want to thank both of you for joining us. First of all, we had part one of this debate with the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Tom, Sybil, and Bill will continue part two on TV1. But thanks a bunch to Randi and Steve for being on the Tom Joyner Morning Show.
So my pleasure.
You're going to have to stay after school after this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're continuing our conversation regarding pros and cons of the issue of school vouchers. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, Dr. Steve Perry, founder and head of Capital Preparatory Schools. And so, Randi, I want to go back. So you made a comment during the break
right.
that I want you to go ahead and repeat again. Go ahead.
So, you know, I find that the kind of conversation when one actually starts just insulting others. What the unions have done in this country has been to help increase equality. The unions created middle class. What teacher unions do is they fight for kids when kids don't have a voice. And ultimately, you're all right. We have to make sure when half the kids that go to public schools are poor, we have to make sure that it is the great equalizer. But you can't keep taking a baseball bat to schools and keep telling them, change, 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 change. The schools that actually work have had, you know, focus on well-being, powerful instruction, teaching teachers how to teach, including dealing with classroom management and cultures of collaboration so that community comes in and you invest in that. And my point is, regardless of where you stand on the voucher debate, and I think that if it was really working, you'd have a whole lot more kids in voucher schools. We've had vouchers and charters for 25 years. There's less than 0.5% of kids that are in voucher schools. But don't kill the federal dollar for education. Don't kill all after-school programs. Don't kill all community school programs. Don't kill all training. And don't take $1 billion out of Title I.
So I'm going to ask you this question, then I'm going to go to Steve. So let's say they didn't kill those programs and still want to expand school vouchers. Would you still oppose it?
Personally, I would probably still oppose it.
Okay.
Wait. But what I'm saying is my institution has not opposed charters. And what we've seen is because I believe, and the reason why is I'm a religious Jew. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the separation of church and state. And that reason, I would still probably personally oppose it. But on charters, when you look at the for-profit charters and the virtual charters, it's the same situation.
Okay, Steve.
You know, what's cool about having a conversation with Randi Weingarten is part of it is that the truth becomes a quick casualty. Her organization has vehemently fought against school choice and continues to do so. We operate charter schools now in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and in New York. She fights them vehemently. She knows that. So it doesn't matter that the truth is a casualty for her. She's just going to make a point. The fact is that parents deserve the right to choose. My child, my choice is a right. And how dare she, a person who gets to live in a tawny suburb, get to tell people who are living in squalor in these here United States that they have to go to failed schools because those failed schools pay dues up to the organization that she heads. We have to fight for our children, and parents are doing it. It's the reason why we opened a school in Harlem and 1,500 children applied for 80 seats. It's the reason why we opened a school in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and 1,000 children applied for 250 seats, and over and over and over again. It's because the community wants out. There would be more voucher programs if, in fact, there wasn't so much misinformation spread by the cartel that is the teachers union. We know that as a fact that we are fighting one organization and one organization only. It's not parents. Parents every single day, whether they be wealthy or poor, whether they be black or white, are making the choice to send their children to the very best school that they have access to. So I support the parents. I believe that parents, more than I, know what's best for their children. Public education is not defined by the product, meaning the building at the end of the street. It's defined by the process, meaning the people who are educated. And so when the public, the parents, say they want to choose another school, how dare anyone, any special interest group try to convince us that we need to go back to an older America.
I want to pull
we
in.
need to go forward.
I want to pull in
and
Greg.
make sure.
I want to put in Greg Carr here. Howard University is the only HBCU in America with a charter school.
Yes.
Tied to it. I've made made it perfectly clear why I stand on school choice. I'm in support of it. I went to magnet schools. Now here's what I find to be very interesting. I've had these debates with the folks who they're being critics of magnet schools.
Of course.
Who have said segregated, exclusionary, because you get to apply to actually get in. What's interesting to me is that when we talk about this idea of having different modes of education, even some of those other ones were still fought. So, so on this issue, your thoughts about it in terms of where we are, where we should be going.
What you said was important in the first segment, Roland. Black parents don't care. I think it's disingenuous to stigmatize people. Oh, they're living in these. It sounds like Trump. You're living in hell. What do you have to lose? No, 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 no. What Du Bois said 60 years ago was true. What black people don't care about, they don't care about segregated or integrated education. What we want is education. The teachers' unions are unions. The unions must be supported, but they must also be reformed. There's been a lot of racism in unions. Right. Teachers' unions are not excluded. But this whole idea that charter schools or vouchers are better has been disproven by the evidence. Steve is exactly wrong. And I am a teacher. I'm a public school graduate, and I teach at the best private black university in the country, and I'm here to tell you, one with a private school, with a charter school, if you have quality teachers in the classroom, then learning will occur. And what this country has to decide is whether or not it's going to be a democracy that supports the education of its citizens or not, and it doesn't matter the content delivery system. You've got to have excellence regardless of the choice.
So Chris, on that particular point, what Greg said, so if we've seen failing traditional schools and failing charter schools, we've seen successful traditional schools, successful charter schools, why don't we simply say, oppose failure across the board, and if something is successful, I support that and continue it.
Yeah, because we've gotten into these boxes, these political boxes about whether I support voucher. Look, at the end of the day, is my kid being educated? Take the model, throw it out. Let's see what's working. And that's not what we're doing. Instead, we're stuck in the same debate over and over again. I oppose this. No, I support that. No, you're a racist. No, you're not. And at the end of the day, our kids aren't learning. That's the issue.
Spencer, hold on 1 second. I want to get Spencer in.
Sorry.
Traditionally, when desegregation came, white folks fled, went to private schools, and largely defunded public schools, right? So a question here is, right now, the Trump administration is shifting money, is basically talking about vouchers, shifting money possibly to private schools. That is a concern. That concerns me.
Well,
when we have so many black kids
keep in mind,
in public schools. So I'm not talking about charters. I'm not talking
the
about
Obama
that.
administration also got criticized.
That's exactly right.
For charter schools as well. With
But
the
I'm
same
not talking about charters. I'm talking about vouchers. I'm talking about giving public money to private schools.
Right. But what I'm saying is, but even in this debate in terms of focus and shifting. Even they got criticized.
That's
So the issue is not even
the
issue is not even Trump or in terms of their budget. It's also when you've had this conversation, folks have criticized Democrats or Republicans. I want to get Randy's final comment. Then I want to get Steve's final comment.
So look, to your point.
Hold on 1 second. You know what? Let me reverse it. I'll open with you. Steve, you're going to give your final comment first. Randy, give your final comment last. I'll reverse it. Go ahead, Steve.
It's important to understand that I support school choice, period. Not charter schools, not traditional schools, but any kind of school that works, because I believe that a parent knows better than anyone what's best for their child. And as Howard is a private institution, it does receive vouchers. It's called a Pell Grant. And that's a voucher, just like Medicaid, Medicare, and the like. And if we support school choice, we support access to quality education. And it's not about public or private. It's about what's best for our children. Brother, don't insult me.
I'm not. I wish you got to get that right.
So my union expelled our segregated locals and lost a lot of members because we said equity, justice is more important than anything else. That and what we are trying to do now is, to your point, sir, if you see some good strategy, you use it. We run a charter school. I run a charter school in South Bronx that has 100% graduation rate. It is represented by the union, but it's a charter school. The public dollar has to go for a public purpose, first and foremost, to kids who are poor. And that's what we're fighting first and foremost. Using better strategies to actually help kids succeed in a very complicated world, but we have to fight for that public dollar, and that is the biggest fight right now in terms of the Trump budget. To your point, Roland, yes, we had a fight with the Obama administration on certain things like test-based teacher accountability, which created too much testing, but on the issues of funding for schools, the Obama administration put the first dollar in always in terms of funding for schools, particularly in that last recession. That's a really different fight than right now, where about 15%, 13% of the federal education dollar is going bye-bye in this budget. That means
about $9 billion.
What?
About $9, for the folks at home. Not 13%. I want to give a number.
$11 billion.
Okay.
$11 billion. Every after-school program goes bye-bye. Every community school and wraparound service, all teacher training, all money for class size. That is how draconian, callous, and catastrophic it is.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. Your hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.